A pleasant and a very good Friday, everybody. Well, we made it through the week. It's January 8th, 2021. As we head into the weekend, this is what we're watching for you. Some snow is coming for parts of Colorado, Texas, New Mexico, Kansas. That's where the heaviest snow will fall. There'll be a little snow elsewhere. A storm system Saturday is going to be tracking a lot more south than storms have all winter. And that's going to bring some of you who are watching this podcast in parts of southern Colorado, Kansas, New Mexico, you're finally going to get some snow. Quiet weather for the start of next week. As we get into Sunday through Wednesday of next week, we're in what I'd call a readjustment phase with the whole northern hemisphere's weather pattern. And that's going to put us into a mild, dry stretch. So from Sunday through Wednesday of next week, there won't be much going on. Changes are still coming in the long term. We've been talking all week about these long-term changes during the second half of January. They're still on schedule, but the details right now are extremely hard to sort out. The polar vortex is coming, but where's it going to go? And who's going to get the worst weather is what we've got to sort out in the coming days, because we're still looking at these bigger changes 7 to 10 days from now. We're going to talk about airplanes and weather data. Some of you have maybe seen in the news or read about the big drop in flight activity due to COVID-19 across the globe and the fact that we're not gathering weather data from those aircraft and how it has likely impacted weather forecasting with our computer modeling. And we'll talk about that at the end of the podcast. This is where we are today. This little guy right here is what produced some snow last night for parts of Montana, northern and western Wyoming. We're going to see some flurries and snow shower activity in this area today. It'll head off to the east and really not be much of a system. This next guy right here, instead of going this way, is going to swing down here. And we see that. This is by Saturday afternoon. We've got a low here near the Four Corners region of northwest New Mexico. It's not a terribly large system, but it's going to bring in a fair amount of moisture. And for the first time in a long time, we could talk about some southeast easterly upslope winds into the Front Range of Colorado and Wyoming. Now, as this storm continues to move south, it'll be tracking more like this, causing that winter weather down into Texas and New Mexico. But also, we feel that parts of Colorado will get some snow. This is the snow forecast through Monday afternoon. Notice the red and the blue here. Then going down south, we'll show you Texas here in a minute. But notice parts of southern Colorado along and south of I-70 going to see some snow, areas that really haven't seen much snow lately. Colorado Springs, Pueblo, I think even Denver. And even look at this, parts of the northern Colorado Front Range, that upslope is going to produce a little bit of snow during the course of the day Saturday. But the heavier stuff more skewed down south. You can see lighter snows up here. A lot of this right up here is actually what's occurring right now. Most of what you're seeing from about this area here is what's going to be coming tonight through Saturday night. Here's a closer look at the snow and the ice. Look at this, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi. Yeah, it's going to snow that far south. Would not want to be traveling in this area here this weekend at all. It's not only going to be snowy, but there'll be some freezing rain, very icy conditions as well. So if you're going to be heading into that part of the country this weekend, watch out. Now, as we look ahead into next week, this is the upper level pattern for Wednesday morning. Notice the jet stream bringing very mild air in from the Pacific. We're cut off from any Canadian air because of this west to east strong jet stream wind. So for California, for the Great Basin, for the Central and Southern Rockies, the first half of next week will be a real yawner, just really nothing happening going on. But the cold air now is coming over onto this side of the globe. And hence, as we look forward, we see the first buckling of the jet stream Thursday. Straight jet stream winds buckling rather quickly on Thursday. That will send a cold front through late next week. Now, whether or not there's much weather with this, we'll have to wait and see. But the first little shot, it won't be a big shot, but there will be a shot of colder weather coming in sometime around Thursday and Friday of next week. By next weekend, we have another trough coming in. The high pressure gets better established just off the coast of British Columbia. So that allows the door to Canada to open and the colder air begins to spill in. So it's late next week and next weekend where we start to see the fundamental changes. And as you go out further, this is all the way out to the 24th of January. you're looking at 30, 40 degree below zero temperatures in these purple areas right here, trying to push into the northern part of the U.S. by the weekend after this one. And I think there'll be colder air before this comes on in. But look at Greenland to Alaska to Canada. This is a very large pocket of very cold air, still predicted by the long-range models. But this cold air, folks, could end up here. It could end up back here. It could be more centered here, or it could be right where the model says. So it could move around. So you just want to use this graphic I'm showing you as just an indication of what the trend is going to be here in the next couple of weeks. I want to talk a little bit about aircraft data. One of the biggest sources of weather data is not only from weather balloons that go up around the world twice a day, but there's a program that's been started, especially with the newer aircraft called AMDAR, where the jets that go across the oceans, across the whole globe, gather weather information and send it back down, and that information is then fed into our computer models. Now, this is high altitude information, which is really, really critical over the oceans. So if you have the ocean basins like the Pacific and the Atlantic where you have extra data, that's good, because the weather balloons that are launched around the globe every day, we have very few areas in the oceans that we can launch these balloons. So you have these huge data gaps. And so there's been an effort in the last decade to equip aircraft that can get temperature and humidity and winds. Now, you're only going to get that at about 30,000 feet, but that's jet stream level. That's critical data. So commercial weather flights are the equivalent of thousands of extra weather balloons launched every day. So with COVID-19, globally, the reduction of air travel has been about 44%. So there's been a big reduction in the weather data that's going into our computer models. Now, a lot of folks saw this coming late in the middle part of 2019. Now, we're not going to know how much the computer models are really impacted until we can look at the data, put some science to it, get some scientific papers written. But obviously, if you're going to have less data coming in, especially across the oceans, and I can't stress this strongly enough, with flights dropping in the Pacific, especially the North Pacific, we just have a lot of data gaps. And anybody that knows models, it's garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have good weather data going into the models, you're not going to have a good model. So we've seen a really big drop off. This is the reduction in flights globally as of January 4th. Globally, it's 44% or so. And you can see huge reduction in flights across the globe. The UK, you look at the United States, it's better than what maybe you would expect, down 42% or so. But you've got this giant reduction in cross-ocean flights. Only China has really not seen any change in their flights, only a 3% drop as of January 4th. But the rest of the world, the flight activity still is very, very low. So there's less weather data going in. This is important, especially with what we're looking at right now. With this big change coming up during the second half of January into early February, the changes in the atmosphere are happening at the higher latitudes. They're happening at the higher altitudes, such as those jet stream levels, those 30,000, 35,000 feet levels. So we're a little bit handicapped. No, I am not making an excuse. I don't want to portray this as making an excuse for an errant long-range forecast or a bad forecast. But when we have a major global weather shift that we're about ready to have during late January into early February, well, we've got a little bit of a handicap. Yep, COVID-19 affecting weather forecasting as well. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you on Monday.